Howdy, y'all. What's going on, Wealthy Legacy Journeyers? Super excited to have you back. I'm your host, Kendell Liden of the Wealthy Legacy Journey, and today we are going to be talking about wealth building essentials. These are three things that I have had lots of conversations and learned about this week, and I've been going through as I've been building wealth. And those three things are self-control, discipline, and perseverance. It's going to take a lot of those. Those are some of the, I would say, cornerstone ingredients that it's going to take to build wealth. So, as we roll through today's episode, talking about real estate and stock market stuff and what Libby's doing in her art business and other life lessons learned, that's going to be kind of the focus here is how do we display self-control? How do we exert self-control? How do we have discipline in our actions? How do we persevere through the difficult moments of our journey? So, without further ado, starting off in real estate, this week's focus for me going into this week is this webinar that I'm working on for my friend Nathan. I talked about it a little bit last week. This week, working on a lot of that opportunity switch. So I created some like ideas for what branding could look like, and I'm going to be putting together, the big questions, putting together the big stories, some of the rough outline, the skeleton, if you want to, kind of call it that, just this rough idea of what the presentation is going to look like, some of the bigger pieces, and then we can fill in the gaps. And so one thing that's important whenever you're trying to do anything, I feel like, is to put self-imposed deadlines on. This is something that I learned from Dan Martell when he specifically called it self-imposed deadlines, but I've learned it from many entrepreneurs and over the years just seen success in setting some sort of deadline. And so before I even had all my stuff ready to meet with Nathan, I was like, you know what? I need to put a self-imposed deadline in. So I scheduled, hey, can we schedule two meetings for next week? One on Tuesday morning, another one on Wednesday afternoon. And so that way we have time to talk about stuff on Tuesday morning, and then I can, adjust, pivot, write that stuff in, figure it out, kind of finalize some stuff on Wednesday afternoon, and then, I can finish out the rest of this webinar presentation. But it's like, okay, now I have a clock inside of my head that it's like, that's my deadline. So I have, from today, today being Monday, I have a little over a week before this meeting. And so now I have, okay, there's this thing coming up. I have to get it done within this amount of time. I put this self-imposed deadline on. But yeah, so that was this week's big focus, the webinar. Also getting a new flip ready to go for one of my crews over in Grand Prairie. They're in Fort Worth right now. They're going to be finishing that one up in probably another 2 weeks. And so I got to get the Grand Prairie property ready to go, get a punch list put together, get the bids put together. So that one's ready to go and locked and loaded. And I got to get this County Road 210, which is the driveway. It used to be FM 1807. Now it's County Road 210. Putting in the new driveway over there. So I got to get the driveway installed. I got to get all those pieces put together. And that has been a huge but fun learning curve all in of itself. How to, do all these different pieces, move the mailbox, change the legal address, put in the driveway and all that kind of stuff. So excited for where that one's going and where we're at on that one as of this moment. Big hurdle that came up last week in real estate was we had this big shower leak. And so it was really, we had this inspection on a property in Waxahachie. We had it tiled out, the shower, and the inspector came in and said, hey, there's some water in here. And we're like, oh, well, the old shower had water damage. Maybe that's what they're seeing. So I had my people who put the shower in go out there, take a look at everything. They didn't see that anything was wet. None of the drywall was wet. None of the baseboards were wet. And so they, showed the pictures of all their install process, sent it back over, thought, okay, that's probably going to be it. Inspector goes back, says, hey, there's still water. It's like, dang. Okay, we're gonna have to cut out some drywall and show that there's no water leaking. Well, unfortunately, we cut out the drywall. Hey, great on the inspector. It was a bummer for us, and there was water. And so we started going through all the process. It was so cool, though. Libby and I were talking about. I love that I have the advantage of having done construction work before I started project managing, versus just jumping straight into project management because I've installed tile showers before. So I understand the process. First, you have a base. Usually, if you're on like subfloor, you'll put down tar paper. If you're on concrete, you don't. You put down this like initial base that slopes you towards the drain. There's like two pieces of the drain. So you put your first piece, you glue that in, and then you have, this like initial base, and then you put down your, shower pan liner, and then you put the secondary drain piece on top that like bolts in, and then you create your secondary slope, and then on top of your secondary slope is where you put your tile. But you got to make sure on your corners that you seal those up right, and if you have like a seat that you seal all those corners up right, so that way you don't have any water leak through past the shower pan. And so as we were talking to the crew, I was like, well, did y'all do this? Did y'all do that? You know, we were kind of brainstorming as once we broke into the drywall, realized, oh, we do have a hole. And when I said, hey, did you put on, these corners and stuff like that? They're like, oh, no, we didn't put on those corners. Um, they basically had forgotten about it. And so it's like, oh, okay. We were able to break it down, and then we could, dug in a little bit further, saw that the corners were gone, and they were able to just replace the bottom layer. They went ahead and pulled out the pan. They did an awesome job. Pulled out the bottom layer of tile, pulled out the floor, pulled out the pan, started over from scratch, built everything back up, and then reinstalled everything. And it looked amazing when they were done. They did just an absolutely fantastic job. But it was so cool. And it's so grateful that I have that experience, that hands-on, breaking my back in there, installing many, many tile showers before. And through that process of having done that, even though it sucked in the moment to have to be the one putting those in, I know I could close my eyes and picture what it looks like to go through this process of installing a shower. And so, I really just appreciated that. So I would say, whatever problems or whatever difficulties, whatever, difficult things you have to go through in life, be grateful for those because you never know how it's going to be able to impact somebody else or be a benefit to you and your journey and your story going forward. One of those things for us right now is living in a 400 square foot fifth wheel. But just yesterday, we were talking with some of our good friends who are about to go be overseas workers in Japan, and they're going to do some awesome ministry and outreach there in the Japanese culture. And as we were talking about, they were like, "Yeah, we have to sell everything. We have to completely change our life." And there were some things like we're not moving away from family. We never had to like, give up, our entire community and things of that nature. But as far as like having to sell everything, move to a completely different space, a completely different, style of living and all that kind of stuff, like we really were able to relate with that whenever it came to, looking at what we had to go through to get into the fifth wheel. So, you know, I look at that, I go, man, I had some backbreaking moments inside of flips, but now I'm able to relate to my contractors. I had a really, really difficult transition, me and my whole family did, moving from our home on an acre, having to, give our dog to a new farm and having to sell everything and downsize into a 400 square foot fifth wheel. But now I was able to relate with this overseas workers family. And so you just never know how your story is going to ebb and flow and weave to be able to use for the good of those around you. Moving to the stock market stuff, or actually, I should take it back. So instead, I was going to talk about self control, discipline, and perseverance. So, when you look at that shower, my crew really demonstrated an amazing level of self control and discipline. Instead of getting frustrated or angry, they just went through it step by step, systematically with me. And when we realized the problem, they said, hey, we're going to take care of it. They persevered through that difficult moment. Also, with the inspection repairs on that house, it came up again. And so we went back and went through a systematic order. And, also me, I didn't get upset about it. It caused me a lot of extra, it caused me some extra work, not as much as the crew, but I ended up having to communicate with the crew and with my team on both Saturday and Sunday of this week, which was not fun at all. But what is me being upset going to do anything for? So I had self control. I had discipline to continue coming back to the problem, and I was able to persevere through that issue, going step by step by step as we figured out what the problem was, and then we all worked through that problem together as a team. There was lots of different hiccups that came up along the way. One of those being nobody updated our internal system to show that the closing had been pushed back to Monday instead of being Friday. So all the utilities were shut off when the crew got there on Friday. And so scrambling, getting a hold of people to see if we get the utilities turned back on, and finally got the utilities turned back on so we could finish out the shower. It got crazy because they turned off the water, turned off the electricity, and it makes it hard to install and test a shower if you don't have water. And if you don't have electricity, it makes it hard to tile well because you can't see anything. So, anyways, so that's how I displayed the self-control, discipline, and perseverance there. But over the years inside of real estate, man, I tell you what, like I have gone through some extremely painful stuff inside of real estate, and it has taken self-control, discipline, and perseverance to make it to where I am now in my skill sets and abilities inside of real estate. In the stock market, inside of sniping, I really struggled and I've been struggling to maintain self control. I continue to overreach and continue to get burned. And I realized, like, oh my goodness, like this is almost like gambling because things are going right and you want to keep going, you want to keep going, you want to keep going. But then you start missing things. You start pushing it too hard. You start overreaching. And that's whenever you start to get burned. Excuse me, at least that's when I start to get burned. And so I really took a step back this week and I realized, okay, what can I do consistently And what can I be satisfied with that I go, yes, that was a goal reached. Like that was an accomplishment made. One of my takeaways was I reached 30% almost every morning. I've reached 30% almost every morning by the time I hit 10:30 or 10 o'clock, excuse me, the first hour and a half in. So from 8:30 to 10, I've hit somewhere around 30%, if not a little bit more by the time it hits after a couple trades. And so, realize, okay, that's a good profit, quick profits out of the gate. There's not a lot of VP, there's not a lot of support resistance made for the day that's going to obstruct progress and the price and the movement. There's a lot of volume, which allows high liquidity on these trades. And so, it's helped me to be a proficient trader first thing in the morning, but realizing like that's when I've been trading really, really well. The other thing is realizing, okay, for me mentally, like a good number that I go, yes, I'm satisfied with how much I made today on sniping, as far as like the sniping being my day-to-day income, meaning my income needs for my family, $1,000 a day. Because in my mind, I go, okay, if I make $1,000 a day, 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month, just to average it out, you're making $20,000 a month. If you do that over 12 months, it's $240,000 a year. You do have tax, you have tithe. Well, let's just say tax and tithe, there's $75,000. And let's just say actually, I probably shouldn't do that. So if you're at 250,000, that would bring you down to like 175. So like 165. So I'm left with like 165. My family's income needs are really about 40. So I still have a four to one churn to burn ratio if you look at it from that point of view, if I can make $1,000 a day. So the great thing about that excites me is I go, okay, but what if I underperform? What if some days I have some loss, or what if some days I can't actually hit 30%? I only hit like 20% or 10%, 15%, only half, even though I've been hitting 30% consistently. What if that starts to back off? Well, what excites me about that is going, okay, but if I only make $500 a day and I cut that in half, I'm still making, after, everything's all said and done, roughly $80,000, which is still a 2 to 1 churn to burn ratio. So I still make considerably more than my family needs to live every single month. Now, do I want that forever? No. But does it work to get me out of a job and into this direction where I'm moving stronger and stronger this way? Yes. Also, I plan to also be making more money off of the VMAS 4 system, off the trades with the War Room, Daily Profits Live, everything else. So there's other trades we're planning to do as well that can also help produce some income. It's just this is what meets my cash flow needs for my family as far as income, and then the rest of it's more of just like asset generation stuff, wealth building stuff. So when I took a step back on that, I was like, okay, 30% gains, very reasonable. But mentally, I know that I want to make $1,000 a day. That means I need to trade $3,000 a day, because $3,000 a day, 30% gain, it's actually $900. But typically, I've been making a little bit more than 30% whenever it's all said and done, because you're in a trade. When you exit that trade, it's not like you just hit exactly 30. I might be like, like for example, this last week when I was trading, it's like 17%, and then my next trade got me to like 20, I think it was like 26%. And then my next trade ended me up at like 39%. And so that's where I should have been done. Now I kept trading. I hit like 50 something percent, ended up working my way all the way up to like 80 something percent. And then I had a couple bad trades that completely just blew up in my face. I broke a lot of my rules. I kept upping my position sizing, trying to like scale out of this position. It kept getting worse and worse and worse as the trades went against me. And I ended up down about 176% on Friday, which was a huge blow. So now at this point, from all of October trying to snipe, while I've had gains every single morning out of the gate, I've ended up walking away now at a 614% loss for the month of October from breaking my rules. But I'm really excited about this because this to me feels a lot like my weight loss journey. I'm now backed into a corner. I now have to get out of this hole, and I'm going to just start swinging. I'm going to start swinging, 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 swinging. I'm going to have the self-control. I need to have more discipline in my trading, more self-control to stop whenever I've hit my profit target, and the perseverance to keep fighting my way out of this hole. And so I look at it and go, okay, if I make 30% a day and I'm climbing my way out of a 600% downside hole, that's going to take me 20 trading days to climb out of that hole. I trade 2 days a week, so it's going to take me 10 weeks. So between now and the end of the year, my hope is that I can climb my way out of this hole, making $1,000 a day. All of this is going to be on paper, But then I've already told Libby, I was like, if I can make $1,000 a day on paper and I can do that consistently before 10 a.m., which I think would be really exciting to launch 2025. I know this is a little bit longer term, but if I could come out of the gate 2025, what would be awesome is to wake up early, do my pre-market analysis, trade, be done trading by 10 o'clock, and then I can roll straight into all of my real estate stuff. So the real estate stuff, it might push it back just a little bit, but I'm making $1,000 a day trading, and then I also go into my other real estate job, and that just shows me for then the next few months as I start off 2025, because my goal is to be done with real estate by the end of May 2025. That is my 2-year mark, so it's coming up very quickly in all reality. Can I make $1,000 a day for the first 5 months of 2025, showing me that when I step out in June, I've already created consistent cash flow over time. I've already proven that this system will work over time. But the only way, I realize now, the only way that's going to work is if I have self-control, discipline, and I persevere through this pain, right? I have to have the self-control to stop while I'm ahead. I have to have the discipline to wake up every morning, to analyze the charts, and the discipline to know what trades I should take and what trades I should not take based on the market environment for the day. And I have to have the perseverance to push through those losses, to write up on the board that I am down 614% for the month of October, but that doesn't mean that I quit. I've learned some awesome lessons through that pain, and now let's see if I can apply those lessons to be able to create some outstanding gains. With VMAS 4 this last week, we also had a really good win rate. I think we went 5 for 7, if I remember correctly, which is about a 71% win rate. Super excited about that. I know we both walked away from last week being very satisfied with our VMAS 4 trades. Trading in the war room, specifically with Brian Bottarelli, we finally started to get some base hits, small wins here after, one after one after one. But really good to start getting some consistency there as well. We took some really great trades at the end of September, but we weren't fully convinced going into October. And so into October, like, okay, we want to see a little bit more consistency out of this before we, push all in. And so far, we're seeing that consistency with VMAS 4, and we're seeing that consistency with Brian Bottarelli's trades as part of the war room through October. And so our hope is after the elections, when things start to sell out through the rest of the year, that in November and December, we are actually able to trade both Brian Bottarelli's trades and the VMAS 4 system trades inside of our real money account. And we're just still practicing sniping on the paper money. And that's kind of the big trades that we're focused on is the war room trades, and the trades that are a part of that program, the VMAS 4 trades, which is a system that I created and we've continued to just improve over time. And then also the VP range sniping, which is I really learned from a guy named Donald Williams. He goes by D-Man, but Donald Williams. In the Cash Flow Academy, I joined a webinar this last week. It was so good, but now I really want to buy another course, and that's the problem. But I learned a lot about how to gauge market sentiment, how to use market volatility for my good, and the downturns in the market to my advantage. And I'm really excited to dive into this course once I have the chance to buy it and go a lot deeper. But that's a part, again, of just that self-control, discipline, and perseverance. Is almost every single night this past week, I was studying and learning different things in and around the stock market, right? I was doing the Armor course. I was watching D-Man's weekly report. I was reading different reports from different people as far as like economic numbers. I was going through different coursework and classwork. I watched a whole course on balancing a portfolio and how to do that mathematically and looking at, the risk and reward and probabilities. And it was very interesting, but I'm working continuously to improve and hone in on my skill set. I don't get to watch every football game. I don't get to watch TV all the time. And yes, there are times where I do watch TV, right? There are times where I do like vegetate and I just like check out for a minute. But a lot of my time is spent learning, growing, improving, advancing. And that's what this season is going to take. There are moments where life will hit you so hard with that 2x4 as you're going through this journey. You got to say timeout. You can't like push it, pedal to the metal. Give yourself a week off, give yourself 2 weeks off, but then get back in that saddle and continue in self-control, discipline, and perseverance to reach that goal. Speaking of self-control, discipline, and perseverance, Libby and her art, she is crushing it. She just finished her first commission job. She's actually going to be sending it out this evening. She's making $120 on that, which might not sound huge to you, but for her, I'm just so pumped for her because that's about half of what the first order cost. That's about 25% of our all-in costs into this venture so far. So she's already paid off a little over 50% of our total costs into this venture. She's got a big Christmas fair coming up here in just like 3 weeks, I believe it is. And so we're actually going to be spending the next 2 weeks where she's going to be painting almost every evening and afternoon. And well, afternoon while the kids are napping, and then evening after the kids go to bed, I'm going to be editing the things that she's painting on Photoshop, so that way they're print ready. We're going to be working as a team. The next 2 weeks are probably going to be super duper uber busy, as I'm trying to do stock stuff and the real estate stuff and build this webinar and in the evenings, helping Libby with her editing. I know it's going to be a whole lot, but, we're going to push through this one last push of the year for Libby's art. And then for the rest of this year, rest of 2025 or 2024, into the spring of 2025, she's going to be able to focus on the spring line, building up a website, some other stuff before those spring farmer markets and different markets begin. So she's going to have some time to just kind of continue to chomp away at it slowly, but consistently over time. We're doing one last big push for this kind of end of the year last big opportunity to sell. And the goal here is, can she be break even on this venture by the end of this year, seeing a huge opportunity for profitability going into 2025. So yeah, like I said, this week, next week, we'll be working on almost every evening on the next batch of artwork to get it ready for this big Christmas fair. And then after this fair, things are going to slow to a consistent, steady pace as we go into the spring as she expands her portfolio and builds a website into 2025. Got lots of ideas for different offers that she can create, including one of the things we talked about is she wants to make little stickers out of some of her drawings. And I was like, what would be so cool is if at your fair, if people, just put something there, it's like, oh, if you like and share my Facebook page, you can get a sticker for free and create some of that organic movement in the market. And so anyways, just some of the things that we're excited about, some of the different ideas that we have churning of like how can Libby continue to move forward in progress inside of her business. And one of the things that we thought would be really, really cool long term, like the reason that she's building this business, so we've thought, how cool would it be if Libby's art business could basically meet all of our income needs, and then everything I make in trading can just go towards building wealth. And so that way, over the next few years, we can just consistently be adding as much capital as possible to our wealth snowball to get it rolling as big and quickly as possible so we can get to that passive income goal, right? Where we don't, it takes it, it's, we're able to cover our monthly expenses without having to lift a finger. It's the way we define wealth here at the Wealthy Legacy Journey. Like, how can we make covering our income, covering our expenses so simple that when we go to have our next baby, it's not this huge stress, right? When life does does a hard right on you, a hard left on you, and just turns and goes crazy, like it's not like this catastrophic, oh my gosh, how are we going to pay our bills? How are we going to keep up with our lifestyle? But we've built this cash flow out of passive income that, won't change much. And then also we have a churn to burn ratio that's at least 2 to 1. One of our goals is to have a churn to burn ratio of 4 to 1 on passive investment income. And that would just be absolutely incredible. Some other final big life lessons learned is the zero DTEs, days to expirations options. They take discipline and strict rules to stay profitable. The moment you begin to overreach and break your rules, your risk level goes through the roof. But isn't that true in almost every single aspect of life, right? So many aspects of our life, whether it be real estate, whether it be stocks, whether it be our, marriage and with our kids, like whatever, the moment we begin to like overreach or push too hard or we have these rules or these boundaries or these agreements that we've made. Maybe you have rules, boundaries, and agreements that you've made with your spouse. And if you start to break those, you start to lose trust, like your risk of, you know, of blowing up, I guess you could say, that thing that you've created, that asset you've created, that trust that you've created, the relationship you've created goes through the roof, right? So everything that we do, it takes discipline, it takes rules, it takes boundaries to keep it well. And the moment that we begin to overreach and break those rules, we start to add risk into something that doesn't really need to be that risky. Libby and I had some riffs this past week. It's important to note that when you're at your max limit, you gotta allow yourself some small breaks to decompress before you just explode. And so, like, even Libby and I, knowing that these next 2 weeks are going to be really busy, we've already talked about, okay, how are we going to strategize going into these next 2 weeks so that we don't, just get after each other because we know there's going to be a lot of moving pieces. How do we stay calm and patient, kind, loving towards one another as we go through all of these hoops that we're going to try to be accomplishing? One of the things is we're actually going out for it's a birthday trip that got last year. But Libby, we had KB and he was still nursing and he was still sleep training and now he's weaned and all that kind of good stuff. And so this November, just after the final market of the year for Libby, Libby and I are going to have for her art market, we're going to go out for a little 3 day getaway, which is going to be absolutely amazing. And it's going to be just after this big push that we're doing. And so I think that getaway is about a month or so from now. I think if it's about 4.5 weeks if I know correctly. And so we've already got that planned out. It's like, okay, we have this thing to look forward to. Like we're gonna grind for the next couple of weeks, but then we have this like little getaway to look forward to. Really looking forward toward that. But when building anything bigger and better in your life, it's always going to have a tipping point, and that's important to remember. When you're climbing that mountain, it's going to get harder at first than it was when you weren't climbing the mountain, right? It might even get much, much, much harder than it was before. But at some point, you're going to hit that tipping point, and everything is going to change, and everything is going to become so, so much easier. I experienced this when I was doing flips. I experienced this when I was doing land deals with Aaron and Carson. I experienced this when I was coding stuff for the bot, though the bot never took off. I hit this tipping point where all of a sudden the coding got easier. I know the stocks are going to get this way, right? This season that we're in, once we start making income on all sides, I'm able to just have one job and really dial in my focus. And Libby's got consistent income flowing over there. And one of the things that we'd love to see is that Libby's able to get a Photoshop editor, something that she can consistently go to that's able to remove the background so she can just focus on the art and just focus on the products that she's creating and not having to do all this extra, kind of crappy work in the background, but have somebody else that, just does that simple work. We're going to, all those different things on whatever it is that you're building, whatever it is that we're building, there's some tipping point where you go, wow, like this was so, 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 so unbelievably, unbearably difficult. But then you hit that moment where it's like, wow, boom, like I've hit that tipping point. All of a sudden, everything's starting to get easier. We're starting to make income, starting to make cash flow, starting to see the fruit of the labors, starting to unload some of those difficult responsibilities, the unenjoyable responsibilities, right, off of our plate onto somebody else to be able to give them an income. It's a blessing for us, a blessing for them. But we have to accept and understand the fact up front before we begin the journey that it's going to have some difficult moments so we can have the mental toughness required to see the journey through. So, as you're going through this journey and you're going through your wealthy legacy journey and you're looking to build wealth, to build a powerful legacy, don't forget three of the important essentials: self control, discipline, and perseverance. Anybody you talk to who's had success in life would probably agree with that those are three of the most important things that you're going to have to build internally in order to build something amazing. With all that said, guys, let's say our identity mantra together as we close out today's episode. I explore the unknown. You say it after me. I conquer new frontiers. My journey is powerful, and my wake is a wealthy legacy. If you need to, just rewind this and say that again to yourself. Like, I explore the unknown. I conquer new frontiers. My journey is powerful, and my wake is a wealthy legacy. That is what I'm going to do. That is what I'm going to leave behind. That is the life that I am going to live. And as a reminder, guys, the way we define wealth here at the Wealthy Legacy Journey is simply the ability to cover your monthly expenses without having to lift a finger. It's as simple as that. And legacy is leaving a long lasting impact on others who come after you as they receive the fruit of your labor, whether that fruit be good or bad. The way that you leave good fruit is by cultivating good trees and by planting good seeds prior to that, because you plant the seeds, you grow the trees, and the trees bear the fruit. So ask yourself right now, is the seeds that you're planting today, this week, this month, going to produce the kind of fruit that you're hoping to receive in the next couple months and years of your life? If the answer is yes, keep doing the hard work well. Have self control, have discipline, and persevere well. If the answer is no, if you think, the seeds I'm planting today, they're probably not going to produce the fruit that I'm looking for, cut the trees down, get rid of any fruit that is produced from those seeds, stop planting those seeds, stop taking care of those trees, stop cultivating that fruit, start planting new seeds. They're going to take you in the direction that you ultimately want to go to give you the success, the life, and ultimately a legacy that you leave behind that you're excited about and you're proud about. With all that said, guys, it was awesome hanging out with you guys. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps the algorithm. Down in the description, don't forget there's 2 Google Docs made just for you. The Wealthy Legacy Journey resource page, which just has a ton of resources that have been helpful to me that I wanted to point you guys to because they were helpful for me in my wealth journey. So I think they'd be helpful to you in your wealth building journey. There's also the Wealth Health Checkup, a little spreadsheet where if you're just not sure where to start in your wealthy legacy journey as far as your finances, you can plug everything in there and it'll help point you in the right direction of, okay, here's where you need to go. There's where you need to go. And it's just a Google sheet that you can download onto your own, computer. I'm not going to like see any of your personal information. You can download it onto your computer, plug in the numbers, and it's, this automated color coded thing that can really just does a good job of dialing in and showing you like, okay, you need to focus on your income and your expenses, or you need to, your cash flow. You need to focus on your capital, your assets and your liabilities column. You need to focus on, how much access to capital you have, just depending on where you are at in your wealth building journey. And with all that said, guys, this has been another episode dedicated to you and your own personal wealthy legacy journey. So go out there, take the next right step today, and I cannot wait to hear about all of your success stories. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody.